Ryan Garcia's boxing flaws exposed by Gary Russell Jr. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Gary Russell, let's jump straight into it. Verified page said, finally had a chance to see Ryan Garcia versus Emmanuel Tagoe fight. Just as I thought. Boring. And Ryan Garcia was punching with his chin in the air. End quote. Shout out to Gary Russell Jr. My thoughts, I've said the same exact thing. Listen, when are you guys going to admit I'm the best in boxing history when it comes to this? Notice, you can get information from wherever you want, but I am the greatest. Boxing trainers, great boxers, fighters. Notice the stuff I say on my channel is frequently and often mirrored after I say it. This is verbatim what Gary Russell Jr. is saying, verbatim what I have said about Ryan Garcia. I have nothing against the kid. I have nothing against any fighter, but I give you guys that raw, that uncut, that pure, that cocaine. Like, you know, when it comes to these bars, I'm dropping lines. I don't just say stuff for my health. Gary Russell Jr. is completely correct. Ryan Garcia, the flaws that he shows, I literally said this on my Boxing Ego watch party. So you guys can go watch that back if you're like, oh, you're trying to take credit. You didn't really say that. Whatever. The videos are still up. During the Boxing Ego watch party, I said exactly what Gary Russell Jr. is saying. Ryan has his chin in the air. That's a no-no. You can't be calling out guys like Gervonta Davis. And I know Gary Russell Jr. has called out Tank Davis and stuff, but I'm sure he would even be able to, you know, admit, even if he thinks he can beat Tank, that Ryan fighting Gervonta Davis with these types of flaws, chin in the air, and like his punches being wide sometimes and just walking forward with no jab, trying to walk people down, is just a recipe for disaster. And shout out to Gary Russell Jr. He's clearly a boxing brain. Now, I know a lot of the racist fans and old media, they're going to come, oh, haha, you lost your last fight. I mean, you can say whatever you want. It doesn't take away from Gary Russell's skills, and he's done more than you. You know, and the other thing is, yeah, he lost to Max Sayo, but he also fought with the injury. Who knows how the fight would have played out, you know? But when you're a black fighter, it just comes with the territory. You're held under scrutiny. Tank fought Isaac Cruz with the messed up hand. Gary Russell clearly was vulnerable, you know, or injured, you know, impacted, handicapped. And it is what it is. It's boxing. You have to get through it. So I was actually impressed by Gary Russell Jr., his wherewithal. It showed that he knew his way around the ring, because some of y'all favorite fighters, if they had a known injury and handicap, just like Gervonta Davis, just like Jermall Charlo versus Montiel, you know, just like another black fighter, Gary Russell Jr., and they were in there with one hand, then they would get knocked out. And it's just like that. Can you imagine if Ryan Garcia's dominant punching hand had been injured throughout the fight? Does he have the skills to win the fight with just a jab like Gervonta did? You know what I mean? And this is what we're talking about. So hopefully Joe Goosen sees, watches tape, and you know, tries to get Ryan right and ready, because from what I'm seeing, I agree. I also thought the fight was boring. Sebastian Fundora versus Erickson Lubin. I mean, put those on a TV in a bar, Buffalo Wild Wings, put Sebastian Fundora, Erickson Lubin on TV A, and on TV B, put Ryan Garcia's fight with Tagoe. And I guarantee you, if nobody had a name, we're not worried about Instagram followers and stuff like that, and you just did a blind test and just showed them there's no names on the trunks or nothing, TV A, TV B, and you had Lubin versus Fundora, TV A, yeah, Ryan versus toe tag or whatever on TVB, we know what the better fight was. So I agree the fight was boring. I agree Ryan showed vulnerabilities, and I agree Ryan's not ready. You know, maybe they could make a Gary Russell Jr. fight with Ryan. I really don't know Gary Russell's situation, but, you know, outside of everything else considered, I agree with him. I think Ryan definitely needs to work on these things. The fight was boring, and ultimately the fight, you know, if Ryan keeps fighting, I mean, you can't just knock and gun everybody down. That's just not boxing. You're not going to walk through everybody's punches. People setting you up for traps. People trying to, like, one feint will mess up your whole night. You know, it's just Emmanuel Tagoe. He was off a long layoff. And he's much smaller. He looked like 3 weight classes under Ryan Garcia. And outside of all of that, he just was fighting scary and hesitant. So yeah, okay, Ryan will get, you know, and Ryan couldn't even finish the job, even though despite all these advantages. Could you imagine if Floyd Mayweather fought Canelo and he was like visibly, he looked way taller, like Ryan looked versus Tagoe, like Canelo looked versus Cotto, right? And he just looked like he was 3-4 weight classes heavier. He was like 20-50 pound when he rehydrated. I mean, Floyd would be catching even more bodies. But we all know Floyd Mayweather, that wasn't his bag to have an advantage in size. He was the guy that moved up and was supposed to be pillow-fisted and brittle hand, fighting bigger guys, outweighing him 15, 20, 23 pounds. Come on, what are we talking about? So when we see fighters like Ryan Garcia who have all those advantages, youth, activity, even though Ryan had been inactive, he still had been in the ring before Tagoe, right? And Ryan is considerably tall. He has power. I mean, he had is a golden boy card. He had every advantage. So yeah, I expected more. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe. I'm the best in the business. That's all you need to know. Shout out to Gary Russell Jr. And I'm out. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.